Capitol Hill is buzzing with rumors of President Donald Trump planning to invoke a centuries-old law called the Insurrection Act and impose a martial law type order. And that could happen as early as the 20th of April. One of the first executive orders that President Trump signed when he returned to office on January 20th was to declare a national emergency along the southern border of the United States. That order had a rider to it, that Trump might invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 and possibly deploy the military on US soil 90 days after the executive order was signed. The due date is the 20th of April. 2 days after Trump's executive order, the Department of Defense announced that it will be sending 1,500 active duty service members to the southern border, along with additional air and intelligence assets to assist other federal agencies and branches of service that are working to enforce border security. Towards the end of January, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said his department intends to house up to 30,000 criminal migrants at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. But since then, no significant update has been shared by the Trump administration. According to the Insurrection Act of 1807, the President of the United States may permit the deployment of the military and the US National Guard to ensure that the law is enforced in certain conditions and situations. It authorizes the military to completely suppress any rebellion, uprising, or any act of violence or resistance, including that by citizens. The Insurrection Act has the powers to override the Posse Comitatus Act, which is normally in place at all times and prohibits the US military from participating or interfering in any civil law enforcement. It also gives the US President, the Commander and Chief of the US Armed Forces, complete powers to decide if, when and where to deploy US troops within the United States of America. The Insurrection Act is different from a martial law. While a martial law gives complete control of administration and running of the state's affairs to the Chief of Defense Staff or the Army Chief, the Insurrection Act keeps the powers of the state and administration with the US President, who selectively uses military powers to enforce law and order. So while martial law allows the military to take over the role of civilian government in an emergency, the Insurrection Act allows the military to only assist the civilian authorities, not take their place. In the United States, martial law can be declared by proclamation of the president or a state governor. While the US Constitution makes no specific provision for the imposition of martial law, nearly every state has a constitutional provision authorizing the government to impose martial law. Trump has alluded several times that he might deploy the military inside the country. He has suggested using active and National Guard troops to fight urban crime, the enemy from within, and radical left lunatics. Since taking office, Trump has issued executive orders to revoke birthright citizenship and repel, repatriate, or remove migrants from within the country. He invoked the Alien Enemies Act, an 18th century law, and deported hundreds of immigrants to an infamous Salvadorian prison. Thousands of Americans have been taking to the streets to protest Trump's actions, but that's not stopping his strong-arm tactics.